Money Radio, discussing the business of making and spending money.
From the beautiful city of Abuja, it is my pleasure to welcome you to this edition of Money Radio on Leadership podcast. Today we are discussing an issue about Nigeria's population growth. Is it an asset? Is it a liability? What does Nigeria's population growth present to Nigeria in the short term, in the long term? In the studio to discuss that issue with me is Mr. Anthony Uko. So you're welcome.
Thank you.
And as a reminder, this is the national economy segment of the program. We are talking about population now. Over the years, Nigeria's population growth has been on the front burner. Sometimes we tend to forget, but suddenly it comes up.
Yeah.
And many times people speak about the population as a positive thing that is happening, because especially when you have youthful population, it bodes well for many economies, especially those economies that have gone through this process already have many young people that are of working age. But then, is Nigeria prepared for this kind of population explosion? We call it population or youth bulge in economics. Is Nigeria's youth bulge a positive thing or a negative thing in the short term and in the long term? It's Nigeria's population, the population of the country has been, some people say 200 million. Some people say 206 million. Of course, 200 million is the general word that comes from the general figure that comes from everybody's mouth. But then you hear like the World Bank. The World Bank in a recent statistic said 212 million. AFDB, federal government, all of them have different figures ranging from 200 million to 217 million.
Yeah.
That's where we are. Now, is this population sustainable? What do you think?
Yes. We have all these different figures coming from the different agencies because we've not had a formal population census conducted
Since 2006.
Yes, since
April, if I'm not
the last
under Makama.
The last official population census was in 2006, and then the figure then was 180.
Yes.
Yes, the country's population then was 180, and here we are, close to how many years now?
That is 16 years now.
16 years later, we are yet to have another formal population census conducted in Nigeria. But of course, there have been the growth metrics used by many of these agencies like the World Bank, the IMF, the ADB, and all that. And so based on that, there are different growth projections. They arrive at these figures. And so here we are within this period. So that is just an estimate. Nigeria is roughly 210, 212, 217. It could be more, it could be less.
Yeah.
So
and that growth metric, they put it at 2.5% growth. Yeah, but we're talking about compound growth here. Yes. Let's put things into perspective. As of 1960, as we see just here, if you look on the board there, as of 1960, Nigeria's population was 45 million, whereas the UK was 52 million. By the year 2000, we had hit 120 million. That is
more than double.
75 million more than double.
Yes.
75 million more. We had hit 120 million. They had hit just 59 million. That is over 40 years. They added just about 5 million
7 million.
7 million to their population. We added about 75 million. As of 2021, we are 210 million, somewhere between 200 million and 217. The UK is 67 million. They added 8 million just within between 2000 and 2021. That's 21 years. Yes, that's where we are right now.
Yes.
So actually, Nigeria's population is actually exploding. It's bulging, and mind you, just like we said, between 1960 we were 45 million. Nigeria was 45 million. The UK was 52 million. It's not that their population they stopped giving birth or people have been dying in huge numbers. No, it's just that they refuse to. Their birth rates have actually
kind of
slow.
Is moderated.
Yes, moderated. So when we talk about population growth, there are two. We look at it from a different perspective. Some people, I was speaking to economists last night. At least two economists last night, and we talked about something. One, Dr. Emeka Okengwu. He's a member of the Board of Economists of National Economy, and then we talked to another analyst. His name is Professor. He's an associate professor at Babcock University. His name is Dr. Tayo Bello. So both of them agree that look, population growth is not a bad thing. Not a bad thing.
Yes.
But it depends on how you plan for your growth.
Yes.
And they alluded to population growth in China and India. India used to be the capital city, the capital country of poverty. China, just about less than 50 years ago. In fact, from the 70s, okay, let's say about 50 years ago, when they started new economic policies, China used to be one of the third world countries. It was a very poor country. Today, China has lifted more than 500 million people out of poverty. Ditto, India, South Korea, a number of those countries. In fact, this country, which is a first world country right now, Singapore.
Yes.
In the 1960s, Singapore was so poor. Singapore was a part of Malaysia. And because of their poverty and backwardness, Malaysia decided, what are we doing with these people? They are not used to us. They decided, look, you can go on your own, be your own country. And today,
that turned out to be a blessing.
It turned out to be a blessing. And we see today that Singapore has actually overtaken Malaysia, which pushed them away. And so we see that, like those economists were saying, it's not the population growth that is the thing, but planning for the population. Now, what is your take on planning for the population? Is Nigeria planning for this population? Because remember, it has been estimated that with the current growth, by 2050, Nigeria will have a population of 400 million and will be the third in the world in terms of population.
Yeah.
So, where are we? Is the government planning for such an explosion?
Of course, to plan for the population would mean there is a clear-cut roadmap on where the population will go. While it will be difficult to come out and say we want to control our population growth by so and so, which means in so doing, the government would have to stipulate how many children people are allowed to have. Whether they are to have, you can't have more than 2 children, or something like that. That would mean controlling population growth.
Yeah.
But while it may be difficult to do that in this part of the world, where people are afraid to, have as many.
People are following according to the Bible Council or Bible admonition, where it says, "Go and multiply."
They believe they are still multiplying the earth. So many Nigerians are still doing that, and
doing the world a good thing.
Yes, yes, populating the world. But the government has not really had a clear-cut plan, policy on how to ensure that the rise in population, especially the youthful population,
Yes.
is well engaged.
Yes.
Well engaged. You know, Nigeria is actually blessed to have a huge population of
Yes.
people in the youthful range between 15 to 35.
Yes.
They form the bulk
Of the population.
of the population.
Some 65, 70% of
Yes.
the population.
So
That is great.
That is great. And with that kind of youthful, you know, they have the energy, they have fresh ideas, you know. There's so much potential
Yeah.
in this group of
Young people.
young people.
Mhm.
And they are ready to go all out. You see youth, you know, they are the ones dominating when it comes to IT.
Yes.
All of Silicon Valley, all of this uh, great
Tech.
innovation. You
Yeah.
see them at the heart of it. And all these are possible in those Western world because there's the plan is on ground, the policies are there, the finances are there. But here we've had a number of let's say some university students coming up with an innovation,
Yeah.
a product, something they've just worked on in their school, and then is there any policy, anything that takes them up from there,
From that level.
gives them backing,
Yeah.
and then they are ready to fund their research and make them go all out to ensure that they make something good out of all these ideas. What are they doing about nurturing ideas, giving them the environment that they will be able to, they will thrive under, and then you see the creativity in them coming out.
Let's bring something to mind. Our youth getting the right education. You know, it would seem like some things have been lost between the 1960s and now. Um, I remember it was this president, the late Kennedy, if I'm not making a mistake, President Kennedy, who, when Nigeria got her independence from Great Britain, looking at the potential, Kennedy remarked that an African country will soon be like one of us, talking about developed countries.
Yeah.
And the potential was there in the 60s, 70s. I am reading a book right now, President Obasanjo's account of the war, that is the Civil War. And I see there are some things that weren't quite in place in terms of unity and a number of other issues, but that is another issue to discuss, not now. But between there, especially with military takeovers and then some other things, we see that some things were lost, some visions, development plans. The last development plan before the recent one, which is the fifth development plan that's undertaken by Buhari, President Buhari, which we don't, I would say, is not popular because do you know about the fifth development plan? What do you know that?
Because I'm in the newsroom.
You are,
yes.
But you know, you see,
But
there are many people who don't know about the fifth
course.
development plan because it's not even popular.
It's not even
Now,
so.
But when during those days, you remember in the 60s, 70s, we had the first development plan, the second development plan, third, and the fourth. The fourth was not so popular. That was the Babangida time. Yeah, some things went wrong again. But those development plans between the late 60s and the 70s, those had impact, which seems to be lost right now. The country is just existing right now because that that path, that vision,
Mm.
it seems to be lost. And that's what we want to discuss now. Is the country having the right vision? Is the right direction in place? Is the country losing out, missing some key ingredients that are supposed to be undertaken as a developing nation to graduate to that level where we see real development that will engage the youth? We'll go on a break just now, but just before we go on that break, there is a trend in the country right now. You're supposed to have agriculture as the base level of any developing country, but then you have at least some form of manufacturing, light manufacturing, if the least. Factories, warehouses have been turning into entertainment and religious centers over the past years. Instead of building more manufacturing hubs, we have been having entertainment centers. Entertainers actually buying up these manufacturing assets, and then we see that trend that is moving away from manufacturing to entertainment, and the country does not grow like that. There's so much to discuss on this issue. Remember, we are on population growth. We are talking about, is Nigeria's, especially youth population, an asset or liability? Let's take a short break. We'll come back. We'll discuss that. Stay tuned, listeners.
For sponsorship and advert placements, please contact 080-3688-6158. Last Word Leadership Podcast Studio. You have the last word.
Money Radio, discussing the business of making and spending money.
Welcome back, viewers. You're still on to Money Radio. This is the National Economy segment of the program from Leadership Podcast. In the studio, we have as our guest an in-house analyst, Mr. Anthony Uko, and I'm your host, Case Hammond. So, we're talking about Nigeria's population explosion, and then specifically, we're talking about youth bulge. What is youth bulge? Let's look at it. Youth bulge is when you have a country has succeeded in reducing infant mortality. You have more children living or surviving infancy, and but mothers don't reduce their rates of giving birth. All fathers don't stop disturbing mothers. That is
family planning
Yes.
is not being
family planning is
not
not
being
being
utilized.
Yes, and that's where we have youth bulge, and of course today's youth or today's infants who will replace tomorrow's youth who will become adults. So the country is actually increasing in population, and like we said, it's 2.5. Is that an asset or a liability? If the country does not plan for this youth bulge, it will be a liability.
Yes.
But when the country can plan with, especially with a youthful population that is willing to work, contribute to the economy, that is an asset. Now, is the country planning?
We looked at that, and we came to the point that the country can actually do better
Okay.
in terms of planning to engage the youthful population. And one of the areas that we saw that it's it was actually a good idea when that was conceived was bringing up the entrepreneurship studies in tertiary institutions, um, making sure that students were engaged. They went through some form of entrepreneurship studies and not just concentrating more on theory. They were taking through starting a business,
Yeah.
the process that what they needed to do to start a business, how they needed the kind of expertise they needed to run a small business, from incorporation to bookkeeping,
Yes.
and all of that, to ensure that they can actually register, start and operate
A business
a
at least.
business at least. But over the years, it's like emphasis on this in the higher institutions
As Wayne.
has waned. So it's no longer a priority, and that is one area. It was actually a good plan where, if it was implemented strategically, would have seen more youth coming out of the universities having businesses that are already either well established or on the verge of being established. And then from there, um, the development finance institutions can then step in and provide the needed business funds. We have seen the federal government trying to do some of these things. We saw you win
Yeah.
program in the past administration, and some others like it. But it was not done in a strategic manner and on a sustained basis that will actively engage the youth, and then make sure that it does not just stop at that level, but seeing them through the business to the point whereby they are established. And rather than coming out and looking for jobs, they actually come out and become employers of labor.
Yeah. You make a very beautiful point there. Um, that has not been the case, and that is why you see, look, the country, because of, I would say, the where the country finds itself, whereas those opportunities, we'll talk about the opportunity, because when you talk about opportunity for young people, especially would be entrepreneurs or people who want to go into their own business to become employers of labor. You know, there are many things that are not there, except you are the child of a rich person who can give you capital.
Mhm.
In most cases, it's difficult to go into business or to go into to establish your own outfit when you come out from school, or if you have a skill that you think that you can be an entrepreneur. And I say so because to get a loan from a bank for a 22-year-old, a 21-year-old, a 25-year-old, getting a loan from a bank, it's like uh, using, like we would say in, it's like, I don't know,
Getting a camel
getting
to
a
go
camel to go through the eye of a
the
needle.
needle.
Yes, it's almost like that. It's like getting a camel to go through the eye of a needle. It's not easy. So that is one area where the country really needs to make sure that. But you know, when you look at the financial environment also, because of interest rates and all of those kind of things, it is difficult to get loan at a sustainable level. Imagine going to get a loan and the banks will not give you a loan for more than 2 years. If you go get a loan, they're charging you 25,000 and 25%.
Banks are
How do you meet up?
banks are not even out to give loans to
Yes.
to startups,
To startups? They're not
because
out.
those loans are not, the monies are actually not guaranteed.
Yes.
Many, by statistics, many startups, they go under in the first year of operation.
Exactly.
So a bank giving out a loan to a startup is more or less,
Yeah, serious
uh,
risk.
is a very big risk,
Uh-huh.
and the risk tends more towards loss of that
Yeah.
capital than something, being able to recover it. Even long-standing businesses
Yeah.
still end up losing their capital. Then you can then imagine what it will be like. So it's not even in the place of banks. It's not even in the interest of banks
Yes.
to give out loans to startups,
Yes.
because those monies they are giving out, they are actually depositors' funds.
Yes. You're right.
They are
You have a point
your funds and my funds that are accumulated in.
Yes.
No matter how small
Yeah.
the money you have there,
It's
it
people's
makes up.
money.
It's people's money.
Yeah.
So
So they have to be careful.
that is where the development finance institutions should come in. We have organizations like the Bank of Industry,
Mhm.
who should put in, uh, who should have something specifically targeted at the youth in the area of financing. We have the Development Bank of Nigeria. They should have something that is designed specifically for the youthful population, to ensure that they are able to get funding, not just for the business startup, but even in terms of research
Yeah.
and development and all that. And then I think recently too, the Central Bank of Nigeria came up with a fund targeted at um, uh, youth in the, especially through the National Youth Service Corps program.
Yeah. But you see, the problem with those kind of interventions is some of these funds are actually not enough. So you, assuming you are giving a 25-year-old or 23-year-old some intervention fund to go into to invest in a startup, and say that the person needs like a million naira, and you give him 100,000, it won't go. And as a
So
result of
this,
that,
I think it depends on the person's business idea. I think they can access up to that 1 million, but it actually, it actually revolves around ensuring that this person that is getting this money actually has what it takes. He has the right plan.
mhm,
He has a viable proposal that can be brought to life and then executed to the point where it becomes something. Otherwise, if that area is not well, the area of education, the area of ensuring that they have the prerequisite knowledge
mhm.
on what they want to go into and how to go about it, then releasing these funds to them is also as good as wasting the money.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, the purpose for which the money were given out will be defeated.
Yeah. So all of these things are necessary. Remember, we are talking about how prepared Nigeria is for the continuous youth
Youth
bulge,
bulge.
the population explosion. If this economy is not growing at the rate of population growth, Nigeria will be getting poorer, poorer. And that is what is happening, actually. So the country really needs to explore every explorable area to make sure that the economy is
It's growing.
yeah, is growing.
And then and the target should be mainly on the
And
youthful
the youth, yes, yes, because
population.
those are the people who have that exuberance.
Yes.
Now, let's assume, say 400 million. You see, this is these are some of the things that have to be taken into consideration for a prospective 400 million population by 2050. The country cannot be depending on oil.
No.
Oil may lose its value by then. The country has, in fact, even if it doesn't lose its value by then, the country will actually lose. That volatility. You can't depend on a product based on
yes, on such level of
volatility. Yes. So the country needs to have a more sustainable streams of income. Yes. Revenue sources. And yes. That means diversifying. Funny enough, this diversification we have
overflogged it. But we have overflogged the issue of economic diversification,
and little is happening.
It's like when the price of
now that it has gone to $90.
Now that it has gone so high, but the country.
Have you been hearing about diversification recently?
I'm not hearing about it.
By the time the price of oil drops to $50.
But the irony of it is that even with the rise in the price of crude oil, the country is not getting the benefit.
Yes, I say that.
So that's another irony.
It's a complicated. It's a very complex thing. Really, it's complicated. Yeah. What would you advise? Give our audience your last advice on population explosion before we round up.
Nigeria needs to have a definite plan on how to utilize the population growth that we're experiencing now, especially as it has to do with youth. Otherwise, the youth that we're having, if they are not positively engaged, then they will end up being negative. Yes. Getting their hands into things that most of the insecurity we're having now is as a result of this.
All of that.
So the youth needs to be positively engaged for the betterment of the economy. Otherwise, we'll be bringing up
deep trouble. So policymakers try to do something. There's this aspect of the problem we have that you can control. I'm talking about policymakers now. There's this aspect of the problem that can be controlled. There's this aspect that cannot be controlled. What can be controlled? Well, plan for youth explosion or for youth bulge or population explosion so that the country does not get poorer, because the poorer the country becomes, the more problem we will have. This one you cannot, or you will find it difficult to control. That is, you can't stop that man and his wife from having children. At least we don't have that as law in Nigeria yet. So control that which you can control. Forget about that which you cannot control. Just plan for it. Until then, it's been nice having you on the program this afternoon from Abuja. So thank you very much for being with us. Thanks to you, our producers. And thanks mostly to you who follow us loyally on this program. I've been your host, Case Hammond. Until we meet for another bumper edition on Morning Radio tomorrow, have a great day. Stay blessed.
Thank you for watching. For sponsorship and advert placements, please contact 080-3688-6158. Last Word Leadership Podcast Studio. You have the last word.